The wait is finally over. 8.5 years after the announcement, Metroid Prime 4 is finally gonna release on the 4th of December. But it is not only great for long waiting fans, this is the perfect starting point to get into the series for a whole bunch of new fans as well. Yes, you don't have to play the previous games. Don't let the 4 in Metroid Prime 4 trick you. This is a brand new story arc. To understand what I mean, let me explain to you how the structure of the Metroid story works and why you don't need the knowledge of the previous games. But if you still want a quick breakdown of everything you need to know before playing Prime 4, I will have a segment at the end to explain that as well. Sounds good? Let's go. Okay, so why do I say it is okay to start with this game when it's the 4th installment? To answer that, let's take a look at the basic timeline for the Metroid series. Don't worry, it's not as contrived as the Zelda timeline or anything, but you will notice a split here that is not actually a timeline split at all. This is just here to indicate that the entire saga of the Prime games takes place between Metroid 1 and Metroid 2. So the timeline actually looks like this, but I have it like this not only because it makes it a bit clearer, but there is actually another important reason why we like to split the 2D series with the Prime series. You see, the mainline 2D games that start with Metroid 1 / its remake Zero Mission and end with Dread have been mostly developed by Nintendo's in-house studio R&D1 and more importantly, all directed by Yoshio Sakamoto. While the mainline Prime series has been developed by a Western studio Nintendo hired called Retro Studios. Metroid Prime Hunters and Federation Force were developed by Nintendo and Next Level Games respectively, but the one through line for every Prime game is that it has not been directed by Yoshio Sakamoto, but rather Kensuke Tanabe. So at this point, Yoshio Sakamoto was working on the storyline that started with Metroid 1 on the NES and finally concluded with Metroid Dread 35 years later. This is also the reason Metroid Dread is called Metroid 5 and was promoted as such since the first trailer, even though there were many more Metroid games at that point and Prime 4 didn't even come out yet. Metroid Other M is a one-off story that connects the events between Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion, if you were wondering. Other M has a bad reputation amongst Metroid fans because of poor writing, and even Nintendo does not consider it part of the full numerical entries, but it is still recognized in Metroid Dread and kinda counts as Metroid 3.5 of this saga. So, this is one complete saga to the franchise, you can say. And here comes Kensuke Tanabe and the Prime series into play. He wanted to tell a different story for our beloved bounty hunter Samus Aran. So the first Prime game was considered to be a side adventure of Samus that took place between the events of Metroid 1 and 2. This is because the events of Metroid 2 trigger an event that leads to the conclusion of the 2D series as a whole. So Prime 1 fits perfectly in between those two games. And then Prime 1 did so well that the series blossomed into its own trilogy, also known as the Phazon Saga. This storyline started with Prime 1 and concluded with Prime 3. And just like the 2D game got a canonical spin-off, the Prime series got Metroid Prime Hunters that has its own story and plays in between Prime 1 and 2, as well as Metroid Prime Federation Force that plays right after Metroid Prime 3. They are considered canon and are actually very important to Prime 4 specifically, and I will tell you why later. The only thing you need to know right now is that they are one-offs that don't really connect to the Phazon saga that the mainline Prime games were telling. Now you should understand the basic premise of the Metroid continuity. There are two different stories directed by two different people that at first had nothing to do with each other. It even caused contradictions to the mainline 2D games because as the Prime series was going, they used Ridley and the Metroids for their own story that clashed with the things that should happen in Metroid 2. Remember, these were all stuffed between the first two games of the series. But as of lately, Sakamoto and Tanabe made an effort to bridge these sagas and make them connect more seamlessly. For example, they added Ridley in the Metroid 2 remake that they did in 2017 that explains how he reverted back to his old self after the events of the Prime games. There is even a theory that Prime 4 could take place after Metroid Dread instead of playing in between Metroid 1 and 2 again because of the confirmed year and stuff, but that's a whole other topic for another time. We will find out soon enough. So, do you understand why it doesn't matter if you played the previous games in the series? The 2D saga had a conclusion with Dread, and the Phazon saga had the definitive conclusion with Metroid Prime 3, but that of course does not mean that the series is done now, and Sakamoto even confirmed that in an interview after Dread. I quote, "Metroid Dread does conclude the 5 story arc that has been going on for 35 years. However, I feel that is not the ultimate end. There should be something that is able to continue the franchise and the universe. So yes, as long as your character Samus is loved, I would like to do what I have to do." Indeed, Metroid Prime 4 will be at least a continuation of the Prime trilogy, but it's either a self-contained story or starts a new saga in the franchise. I now want to go into more detail of what I think you should know before going into Prime 4, but I can tell you, even without going into details, we basically know nothing about Sylux. The Phazon plotline is 100% done and won't be even referenced in Prime 4, and there has been no sign that anything from the 2D saga has a meaningful impact for Prime 4 that we've seen so far. You can just jump into Prime 4 with no problem. The Metroid games tell a story that can be experienced out of order anyway. It's never the main focus, and it rather focuses on gameplay and exploration. But that's that. Do you still want to know what I think might be important before playing Prime 4? This will obviously include some spoilers, but I will only focus on stuff that is important for Prime 4. Okay, let's jump into that then. First, what is there to know about Samus Aran? Samus is an independent bounty hunter and occasionally accepts missions from the Galactic Federation, which is like this universe's governing body. She's a human that was born on the star colony named K2L. After a space pirate raid that was led by Ridley, Samus loses both of her parents at just 3 years old. A very intelligent bird-like race known as the Chozo take her in and raise her on their home planet named Zebes. Due to its harsh environment, they needed to infuse Samus with their DNA to give her a chance to survive. There are 2 known Chozo tribes, the Choha tribe that is dedicated to science and technology to bring peace to the galaxy. It is the tribe we see the most in other Metroid games, visiting many planets and gathering knowledge and sharing their technology with the residents. The Morkin tribe, on the other hand, consists of Chozo warriors that dedicated themselves to the art of war. Their technology allowed them to create highly advanced power suits that can be summoned and controlled by their will alone, with a ton of advanced weaponry. Samus gets infused with both Chozo DNAs and is now capable of using their power suit and other advanced technology. Her path first leads her to joining the Galactic Federation and bring peace to the galaxy. There, she served under the command of Adam Malkovich and befriends fellow soldiers Anthony Hicks and Ian Malkovich, who was Adam's younger brother. We don't really know how deep her relationship with Ian was, but we do know for a fact that she got very close to Adam, who was like a second parent to her. Many years passed, and one day, on a routine fix for a drive unit, something went wrong when Ian was doing some repairs, and Adam had to make the hard decision to sacrifice his own brother and disengage the drive unit so the ship with 300 passengers could make it out alive. Even though Samus understood his reasons, she decided to leave the Federation force and work as an independent bounty hunter. I got a bit into more detail here because I think these names might come up again in the future. We will have to wait and see. Metroids. They were first discovered on Zebes, the planet Samus grew up on. They are capable of sucking life energy out of anything and are considered extremely dangerous. Their only weakness is cold. But this means they are very potent as bioweapons, and the space pirates stole them and are already trying to get rid of their one weakness. Because this has become a galactic threat, Samus has been ordered to eradicate them together with the space pirates multiple times. It turns out this was a big mistake though. These Metroids were actually created by none other than the Chozo, the peace-loving alien race that Samus grew up with. They developed the Metroids on a different planet known as SR-388 as a countermeasure to one of the deadliest and fastest spreading parasites known as the X-Parasite. They can infect any living host, instantly kill them, take their knowledge and replicate them to be even stronger than they were before. And they are immune to everything. I don't think the X are gonna play a role in Prime 4 at all from what we've seen so far, so I won't elaborate any further. The important part is that Metroids have been used, cloned and gene spliced by space pirates with the goal to create the ultimate bioweapon. And it seems that Sylux uses a new variation of gene manipulated Metroids in Prime 4. Let's talk about Sylux. We get introduced to other bounty hunters, first in Metroid Prime Hunters and then in Prime 3. It seems to be a good industry if you ask me. We get introduced to hunters like Weevil, Noxus, Trace, Spire, Tanden and most importantly, Sylux. This was all in a one-off story in Prime Hunters that had a disconnected plot with the rest of the series. One day, many bounty hunters across the galaxy get a telepathic message that tells them of the existence of a super weapon in a far away part of the galaxy known as the Alembic Cluster. This triggers many high-profile hunters to show up and search for this weapon, Sylux and Samus being one of them. Sylux's origin story are completely shrouded in mystery. We just know that he's from a planet known as Sylosis. He uses modified Federation weapons and hates Samus and the Galactic Federation with a passion. The rest of the plot is Samus manages to obtain everything necessary and kill an evil being known as Gorea that was kept there. Then everyone goes back their own way. The next time we would see Sylux is just a ship at the end of Prime 3. This looks to me like a typical teaser for what's to come next. And that would be the start of the Sylux saga. In Federation Force, we find out where Samus and Sylux went. This is even more of a spin-off than Prime Hunters. We don't even play as Samus at all. Right after Prime 3, the Galactic Federation wants to clean up behind the space pirates and develop brand new mechs that are designed around Samus's power suit technology. We even see these in action in the beginning of Prime 4, by the way. So the space pirates are planning some evil deeds again, and at some point they get a hold of Samus herself. The GF troopers help rescue her, and together they stop the plan of the space pirates once again. The most important part of the game is the after credit scene once again. This time, Sylux is seen stealing a Metroid hatchling. And that's how he gets to clone the Metroids that we see in the Prime 4 trailers. That is all we know. You are caught up. The Phazon trilogy is over. The only thing that we've seen of Sylux is that he hates Samus and the Galactic Federation for some reason, and he has some kind of plan that he set in motion at the end of Prime 3 and Federation Force by following Samus and stealing the Metroid hatchling. That is why I'm saying it is not important to play the other games in the series first. And this concludes the video. I didn't go in depth, so you can always go back and play the other sagas, and I especially recommend playing the 2D games because they have such a great story that was 35 years in the making. But for Prime 4, the only knowledge you need to know is that it's gonna be a new story and old elements should barely play a role. Yes, Sylux has been teased in various ways over the years, but he barely did anything in these games, so now is the time to finally get to know him and his story. I hope you are as excited as I am for Prime 4. This franchise deserves so much more than it's currently selling, and this could finally be the breakthrough. I definitely want to cover more Metroid in the future, so if you are interested, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. See you next mission.